Hello and welcome to EchoChamber podcast. My name is Martin McMahon and I've no Tony Groves with me at the moment. He's still helping authorities with their inquiries. But I do have in the tortoise shack with me at the moment, Frank Keoghan. Frank is the president of Connect Trade Union and also the Secretary General of the People's Movement. The People's Movement campaigns against any measures that further develop the EU into a federal superstate. Thanks very much for coming in this morning.
Thank you, Martin, for letting me.
I suppose we'll jump straight in. There was some figures out of the Irish Times there a while back, and they showed that PESCO will lead to an increase in military spending in this country. And the figures from the Irish Times were between 2018 and 2020, the figures will rise from 946 million to 3 billion.
Yes, it's a shocking figure.
It is shocking.
An astonishing waste of money, to say the least. Irrespective of your ethical or political objections to what's happening, I think that in a country where hospitals are struggling to cope and where there's a huge housing and homelessness crisis, this money could more effectively be used to address these pressing social issues. There is also, of course, the question of us becoming embroiled in a military-industrial complex, particularly in the military end of things. Our so-called neutrality and the repeated bleating from the government about respecting our neutrality doesn't really have very much meaning in this context. To just quote from the PESCO agreement, which we signed last December, the commitment is to regularly increase defence budgets in real terms, that is, in order to reach what is called agreed objectives. Now, 2% of GDP is the agreed objective at the moment, and that mirrors the NATO objective of 2% of GDP. They say under pressure from Mr. Trump. Of course, there's a very close alignment, and I won't be quoting Angela Merkel and the various other luminaries, but there's a very close alignment between EU military activity and NATO military activity. And of course, as listeners are probably aware, the majority of EU countries are members of NATO. And we have realigned ourselves significantly over the last couple of years with NATO, now increasingly through PESCO, of course. The increase in military spending, as Martin said, the World Bank says that we spend 0.3% of GDP on military. We spend less than Luxembourg at the moment, and Luxembourg is less than the size of Mayo, and that puts some perspective on our level of military spending. But if we increase this to the 2%, and it won't happen overnight, so we have to watch the budgets and what increases are in the budget. If we increase this, which we have to, and this now is it's not just a friendly arrangement; it's an enforceable arrangement.
How enforceable is it, Frank?
It's very enforceable because it has the same standing as any treaty after you sign up. Now we voluntarily signed up, and we didn't have to.
Now, when you say we, you mean the government?
The government, I know, yeah, sorry. I should specify that the government did it without asking us.
Yes, without asking us.
Yeah, without asking us. Similarly, if you just look at this piece of paper I gave you, I'll just quote this. We can similarly leave, it's spelled out very clearly in the Lisbon Treaty, the Treaty on European Union, in Article 46, which says, and I quote, any participating member state which wishes to withdraw from permanent structured cooperation, that's PESCO. PESCO is an anachronism for permanent structured cooperation, shall notify its intention to the Council, that's the European Council, which shall take note that the member state in question has ceased to participate. So it's a matter of the government writing a letter to the European Council saying that, for whatever reason, don't even want to give a reason, that they no longer wish to participate in PESCO.
And would that see us out of PESCO?
I would see us out of PESCO, yeah.
Oh, so it's really that simple.
It's as simple as that. It's astonishing. It's so simple.
So a future administration could get us out of PESCO.
Could take us out of PESCO. But we become embroiled in various structures that are more and more difficult to withdraw from as we are drawn further into PESCO.
And when you say that it's based, this increase in military spending is based on the GDP, our GDP is notoriously fictitious. It's called leprechaun economics the world over. And at the present moment in time, our GDP looks like the strongest in Europe.
Yes, the figures of 7.5 have been bandied around the last few days. But there are a number of economists who say that, well, it's not just the economists, the Central Statistics Office says that our gross domestic product is somewhere around the 60%. Now, unfortunately, it's unfortunate, this is the GNP. I keep confusing the two.
Gross national, yes.
The GDP, I should say, is inflated. It's inflated by the presence of the headquarters of Google, of Amazon, and various
Apple and the
Apple
pharmaceutical
companies. I forgot about Apple, yes.
And
Apple
the pharmaceutical companies.
And the pharmaceutical companies. It's inflated by that. So it's inflated by about 40%, according to the Central Statistics Office.
But that's not taken into consideration in the EU.
Of course not, nor when calculating the contribution to PESCO. And we are net contributors to the EU as a result, primarily
based on our leprechaun economics GDP
based on leprechaun
figures.
economics. Yes. Yeah. So we are in effect, excuse me, we're paying something like it's going to increase. This is a statement that was made in Dáil in the last couple of months. Our contributions to the EU will increase by 25% by 2021. It's currently it's 2.5 billion or something like that. Something around that figure. That's to the EU itself, the budget. Now, PESCO will also have contributions from the EU budget, but the most serious thing, I think, is looking forward to the budget, the EU budget 2021 to 27. And we ignore all these kind of things. We sort of look at what's happening in the Dáil and don't look at what's happening in Europe. And the real action is out there in Europe. And a total, between member state contributions and contributions from the EU budget, the latest figure is 48 billion to be spent on military within the EU between 2021 and 2027.
And why is this impetus for build-up of military?
I honestly believe, I could be wrong, but I think that the old imperial powers in Europe are beginning to flex their muscles again. There's a desire on the part of France and Germany in particular to project their power outside of Europe. Merkel in the last week has talked about Europe having a responsibility for Africa. Italy is another country which has designs on Libya. Germany has said they have a responsibility for Libya. This word responsibility means looking after their interests.
Yes, of course.
And of course, France is the colonial power par excellence. Every francophone country in Africa practically has some sort of minerals. France intervenes at the drop of a hat, and we'll become part of the I suppose ideology and machine that fuels this. There are other, I think, sinister developments as well. I mean, the European Intervention Force has been set up in the last few weeks.
Yes.
9 countries with a worldwide mandate. A worldwide mandate.
Yeah.
And that's worse than NATO. I mean, NATO has an in-theatre, as they call it, mandate. This is a worldwide mandate. So you can go off to Papua New Guinea and bomb what the hell.
Yeah, well, I mean,
if they don't
historically,
give us their palm oil.
Build-ups of military eventually lead to war, and that is a historical
fact. But it is the only rationale. I mean, they're using Russia as
the bogeyman.
As the bogeyman. But if you're going to do something like this, you need a bogeyman in order to convince people that they're in danger. And the other bogeyman is, and I mean, I can understand, but there's different kinds of security you can apply to it, is the threat of ISIS and its related affiliates.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Good police work will deal with that.
Good counter-terrorism.
Yeah, good counter-terrorism. I suppose this is a new departure, really, in terms of the EU, in that it's not voluntary like our previous connections with the military side of the EU. For example, our involvement in the I've just forgotten the name of them. so many different names bandied around in the EU, you forget the names.
Well, I think a part of that's on purpose too.
Yeah, oh, that's on purpose. They change. If you try to chase, this is one of the interesting things that I'm not recommending you do it, but you try to chase a budget line in the EU. Like some of this money, for example, might be Erasmus money.
Yes.
I know it's hard to believe, and people find that hard to accept. Erasmus Plus is one of the programs that's designated as part of 6 different groupings that will prioritise military-related stuff. Now, some of the Erasmus funding may go to subvent this.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's very difficult to actually chase the money in Brussels. The name of the funding changes.
So, yeah.
And it's not that you're second guessing, but at the same time, you may not have it all. There may be even more money.
Where do you think this leaves us with neutrality?
My view is that neutrality has been dead a long time. I think when we joined Partnership for Peace, which was about mostly 15 years ago now, a body run by NATO, and we put Irish military representatives into NATO headquarters in Brussels, I think that was when neutrality ended. But the redefinition of neutrality as well, redefining it as military neutrality, purely military neutrality, diminishes the value and the concept of neutrality.
And we have been a peace broker across the world, and it takes that authenticity away from us. It makes us part of them rather than an independent standalone country.
Yes, I think we see our colonial legacy, we might call it that. It's not quite what proper name for it, but our legacy as a colony leads us to have some affinity with ex-colonial countries in the developing world, if you might call it that. And we have a credibility. But we did have a real credibility at the UN. I mean, Ireland sponsored the Non-Proliferation Treaty, for example.
Yes.
It's not great, but it certainly helped. It certainly helped. There's no doubt about it. And it's taken seriously by the big powers and Security Council of the UN. And I think that's very important. We sponsored a major power like China joined the UN. We've a pretty good history of peacekeeping. I might complain about aspects of it, but certainly it's as good as any country I can think of.
Yes.
But we have not followed that. That's the military side ever since the 60s, early 70s. The peacekeeping has been really peace enforcement. We haven't followed it up with attempts, for example, to broker, even though we had the example of the peace process here in Ireland, and enough people who were involved in that. I don't mean the protagonists particularly, but other people from outside who became involved. And we do have the facilities to offer that to conflict zones and to genuinely help bring peace to the world.
Yes.
I honestly fail to understand why the government has not pushed that agenda and shied away from military entanglements.
Well, it would be a better use of that budget to spend it on actually bringing peace to people instead of putting it all into weaponry.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we don't have a disaster response team, for example. I mean, that's a very simple thing. Wouldn't cost a lot to put together. It would be very helpful for people in everything from tsunamis to earthquakes.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing that we should be getting involved in. But given the situation the country is in at the moment, and given the social ills that we visited, I tried to put some way of putting this amount of money into context. Yesterday I was in the Children's Hospital in Crumlin, and they're starting to put down the groundworks for the new Children's Hospital, which they say will be world standard now. But from what I found out yesterday, it seems to be. It has robots and everything in it. That'll cost around $1 billion.
Yes.
It's $1 million a bed, 1,000 beds. Now, $1 billion is a lot of money. 1,000 million. It's a lot of money. But if you think about it, PESCO, our contribution to PESCO, we build 2 of those hospitals each year. If we wanted to.
Yes.
If we wanted to.
Year.
And running right by here is Metro North.
That's right.
Hopefully, eventually.
That's right.
And the bill for Metro North was 2.4 billion over 10 years. And I just told you that this PESCO adventure will cost us an extra 2 billion.
2 billion every single year.
At the moment, this is what they're aiming for. Now, we don't know in the 21-27 EU budget how this will pan out.
But even a commitment to spend more money, considering that we have 10,000 homeless people, that we have a housing crisis, that we have a hospital waiting list that is unbelievably long.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Spending that money and literally bringing in weapons manufacturers to lobby politicians to spend that money.
It's criminal.
It is. It can only be counted as criminal.
I think it's absolutely criminal. The government has increased the housing budget this year by 1.9 billion. That's fine as far as it goes. And they say that that'll take 25,000 families off the housing list. That's 25,000 off for 2 billion. We have about 100,000 in difficulties. 4 years.
The PESCO budget would cover
less than 4 years. Yeah. Now, I know there's bottlenecks and there's difficulties. You can't just throw houses up out of the blue sky, and there's planning problems and all sorts of things. But you'd be going in the direction
you have to
see a way to solve it.
Well, I mean, this government in particular, and the last administration, they said they couldn't build houses for lack of money. They just simply didn't have the money. Yeah. Well, now the money is there, and instead of building houses or fixing hospital waiting lists, they're actually going to invite arms dealers into the country to sell them arms. That's right.
Well, you see, it's not even the arms dealers into the country. I think that's serious. For me, one of the more serious things is that we would be funding developments in other European countries, France and Germany in particular. And I picked those two out because, of course, they're the biggest. It's interesting, by the way, that despite Brexit, Britain will still be, and has pledged and has been welcomed, being involved in this after they've left.
Britain will still be in PESCO?
They'll still be. They won't be in PESCO, no, but they'll be an adjunct to PESCO.
Oh, that's very strange.
Yeah.
So this is a pan-European military.
Military brothers stick together.
Yes.
Or something like that. But as I was saying, we will be funding development of weaponry, including automated weaponry, robots, in other words, that go around shooting people. The EU Parliament failed to stop that, even though they had made a decision to stop it. When it came to the vote, they capitulated.
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks ago, unfortunately. And this is a sinister development. The military people are saying it's the biggest development since the wheel, not quite, but since the atomic bomb.
Well, it is their aim to have fully automated armies.
Automatic killing machines, basically. Yeah, automatic killing machines. France, there are just so many things that are happening. The French are spending 47 billion updating their nuclear arsenal over the next 7 years. But listen to this one. Their military, over the next 10 years, they're spending 300 billion on updating their military.
That's an incredible amount.
And who provides the nuclear punch for an EU army, which is now developing? It is definitely developing. And people will say I'm alarmist, but I'm not. I'll tell you in a moment about the European Peace Facility, which was set up about 6 weeks ago. I'm not been alarmist because Germany has signed an agreement with France that it can legally now fund French nuclear development. Okay. That's weaponry, not power. Not power. And it's suspected that the next move will be dual K. And so that France will put some. They have some cruise missiles.
Yes.
Most of their stuff is in submarines, but there are some cruise missiles in the station those in Germany. Now, the noise has started in Brussels already about why can't the EU do this as well? So we're looking down the road. I mean, not a conspiracy theorist, but we're looking down the road at a possible situation where we will be part of a nuclear-armed power. The EU.
Yes.
Now, the EU operates incrementally. They don't put it in your face.
No,
usually.
Well, exactly as PESCO has crept in.
Yeah. And they're extending their powers.
And every single paper for the future of Europe includes PESCO. Every single paper
now includes PESCO. Absolutely, yeah. So I just want to say a little bit about the Orwellian, I might say, European Peace Facility, which was set up a couple of weeks ago. It sounds great, and they're spending 10 billion on it. 10 billion over 7 years. It's a lot of money.
Well, when you think that across Europe, they have the same problems we have with homelessness. It's across Europe.
We're rich, even though we have great difficulties in this country. We are still rich compared with most of the people in the world who are living on a couple of dollars a day. So if I said to you, here is the European Peace Facility, 10 billion over 7 years, and I said to you in the same breath, that exceeds the aid budget over the same period, you'd be shocked.
Yeah,
and this is just the peace facility. It's nothing got to do with the defence fund.
Yes,
like
I would be shocked.
Tell us more about this peace thing. No, I won't tell you too much. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to read this out because you can't remember these kind of things. This is the definition of the European Peace Facility. It aims to finance the common costs of military operations under the Common Security and Defence Policy. That's the first thing. Contribute to the financing of military peace support operations led by other international actors. Okay. Provide support to third states' armed forces to prevent conflicts. Build peace and strengthen international security. That's grand. And the support they're going to give is infrastructures, equipment and supplies, or military technical assistance. Given by whom? Well, we know who. European arms industry.
To call that, to put the moniker peace on that is very unusual.
Orwellian.
it is absolutely Orwellian.
Yeah, it was not laughing. I'm laughing about it. It's so bloody, it's just, what do they think people are
Well, if you take Ireland, where PESCO has flown under the radar now for going on 2 years, nobody has said stop.
No.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they keep trying? It's working for them.
Yeah, that's it. And there's another thing which is very interesting. Now, if you see the county councils tearing down bridges and building new ones, you might wonder what it's all about. But it's the Connecting Europe facility, it's called.
Okay.
The Connecting Europe facility, it came upon us rapidly. About 18 months ago, Mr. Stoltenberg, who's the NATO boss, started to talk about bringing down barriers to military movements in Europe. I thought at the time, and my mates thought at the time, this is just about border checks and so on. They let the military flow through the borders without, and we didn't pay much attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then we discovered that the EU budget has set aside 6 billion for it. Now, that's not about border checks. Delve a little bit further. It's about strengthening roads and bridges so they can carry low loaders of tanks on them around Europe.
So literally they can move across Europe rapidly.
Yeah, and this is like the old, maybe you're not old enough to remember, but I am, the old Larne to Lisbon road that NATO was going to build back in the 70s, and they were scooting Pershing missiles and stuff around Europe. They had a big plan.
Well, that's before my time, so you'll have to tell me a bit more.
Larne to Lisbon. But this is really an incredible thing. Now, a lot of this spending, of course, will be hidden because we think it's Kerry County Council with the assistance of the two brothers down there
building a new
bridge.
Yes.
Yeah. But in actual fact, it has a much more sinister connotation. We won't know, and anybody who says, this is just for... I'm not sure that it will affect Ireland. But it's an awful lot of money. It's 6 billion.
Well, we're contributing.
Yes. I was going to say, we're contributing. There's another very... these, by the way, have all happened in the last 18 months. All of the things I'm saying to you now.
Yes.
With the exception of PESCO, which was a political objective since, it's about 10 years now, since the Lisbon Treaty. The other thing that has happened is that they changed the rules of the European Investment Bank. That may not seem very serious. And the rules have been changed to allow them to invest in the military. What is serious about it is that it gives military manufacturers access to up to 21 billion of money that's inside of the European Investment Bank. Now, we have a commitment under the Lisbon Treaty, and ours is a very small commitment of 11 billion. It's call-up money.
Okay.
We haven't actually paid it in. We have it somewhere in a bank in Ireland or somewhere. We haven't actually paid it in. We're a small amount paid in. But if they start releasing money to the military industrial complex, the European military industrial complex, then we may have, the call may come, as it were, for the call of money.
Yes.
To be paid into the European Investment Bank. If it's paid to arms manufacturers, somebody else isn't getting it. Small enterprises or somebody like that is not getting it. But remember that this money that is going to PESCO, and it's projected at something like 13 billion out of the EU budget between 2021 and 27. That has to come from somewhere.
Yes.
And they're already talking about the European Social Fund and agriculture being cut. I mean, this is so enormous. That,
it is a huge picture.
It's a huge picture. I'm not going to terrify you anymore because really, I mean, this should be the biggest thing that we're talking about at the moment, in my view.
Okay.
Even if we're in favour of military development, this has just gone out of control.
Well, none of us have been asked, are we in favour of a military union with the rest of Europe? Nobody has asked us. We've had no referendum. We take for granted that we're a neutral country.
That's the key. Most people assume we're neutral.
Yeah, we take it for granted. I've had other people in here, Brian Hayes, other people, and they're very gung-ho for closer European ties with military ties. Very gung-ho for it, and don't see PESCO as a problem.
Yeah.
But you've been working on the ground. You've an Oireachtas committee?
Yes, we ourselves with the Peace and Neutrality Alliance, PANA, have helped to set up an Oireachtas committee which will monitor PESCO. Obviously, from our perspective, something we can't do is question the government on their budget. The budget will be coming in the autumn. The estimates should be available soon, and we'd like to see exactly how much of that would be, excuse me, how much increase in the budget might be attributable to PESCO. Because, as I said earlier, it's not going to all happen on day one. The government may not reach its objectives. It's thought that some EU governments will reach the objective, but not all. I would suspect that the Irish government won't reach the objective by 2020. It's quite a lot of money to come up with under any circumstances. So we'll be monitoring that. 42 TDs voted against PESCO, against us joining PESCO in the Dáil. At the moment, we have Sinn Féin, the Green Party, Labour Party, various independents, People Before Profit, and what other parties? Social Democrats are involved. Our next meeting is in September, the week before it all comes back, I think. 19th September anyway. And we hope to develop information flows and, work together to try to find out as much as possible and hopefully eventually to build a critical mass. Obviously it'll depend on coaxing Fianna Fáil or some major group from Fianna Fáil to support their traditional policy of neutrality.
Yeah, and it is a traditional policy.
It is.
Yes, it is very much a traditional policy.
Yes, well, it comes from, of course, de Valera, who's a great proponent of neutrality and kept us out of the Second World War, whatever else I might think of him on. He certainly gave leadership under those circumstances, and that Fianna Fáil has always had ownership of that. And that is why it's so surprising that they have not criticised our involvement with this military development.
Is it that, do you believe that supply and confidence is keeping them quiet on this one?
Well, it obviously is. Very interestingly, and you see it on the People's Movement website, a little clip in the People's News of Micheál Martin in the Dáil when he was welcoming Michel Barnier, when Barnier was here, saying that Fianna Fáil were committed Europeans, which I've said that before, there's nothing new in that, but what he did say was that ideas about independence and sovereignty were outmoded, or something to that effect. And now I have the clip up on
that was
on Facebook.
Kind of echoed by Fine Gael in recent months as well, in that our idea of neutrality is outdated. I think it was Leo Varadkar said something on.
Oh yes, he said it twice actually. Well, I mean, yes, I think I would personally and we as an outfit would welcome a debate on neutrality, because our neutrality currently, insofar as it is defined as military neutrality. Neutrality extends to an awful lot more than just military issues. Neutrality in politics, neutrality in aid, in all-tide aid. You can go on about developing neutrality. And I think we haven't ever had a debate. We have assumed essentially neutrality is good, we're neutral, so leave it alone.
Yes.
And consequently, over the years, it has been eroded. And people, you just take their eye off the ball, and really organisations like the one that I'm involved with can't get through the media barrier, because
when you're going to be spending when you're going to be spending $2 billion a year, you may say this country's in recovery, but as long as FEMPI exists in areas, you're still
recovery for some.
Yeah, it's recovery for some, FEMPI for others, and to spend $2 billion a year and no debate, no conversation about this, none at all.
Yeah. No, it's and the potential. I think the potential, whether by association or by being actively involved in possibly repressing people in other countries and killing them, to put it bluntly.
Yes. There is Irish military now. There is Irish military now involved in several projects across the EU.
Absolutely, yes. And next year, 2019, we will be involved in I had forgotten the name and I tried to remember it earlier. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It's a military group involved in different countries in the EU. It's a rapid response unit.
Yes.
Yes. The military rapid response unit. We'll be involved, I think, the Czech Republic and I can't remember the other countries right now. But that's another issue. And even though those rapid response units have not been deployed that we are aware of, they could be deployed in 2019. We simply don't know, and an Irish contingent could be deployed with them. But aside from all that, the whole question of military spending and the morality of military spending is something that we really have to question. We're currently spending, $250 million on 3 warships. There is one just finished, or almost finished, I should say, which costs close to 450. So it's nearly close to $500 million. So if you add those two together, that's $750 million spent on ships. To fight who or to do what, I wonder. Anyway, one of them has helicopter launch pads and all the rest of it on it. And I read only last night that the government is upgrading our armoured cars at enormous expense. I can't remember the exact figure. So there's a hell of a lot of military spending going on. Why do people develop these weapons? Why do people increase their armories? Well, there's profit, of course, in producing weaponry, and the arms traders are very good at lobbying and all the rest of it. There are 20,000 lobbyists in Brussels, and not all of them are military, but a sizable number of them are. But the reality in the end is, if you arm up, you're going to eventually use those arms.
Yes.
And we've seen arms races before, and the arms races generally end in war. And it may not be war in Europe, but it could be war somewhere else, defending the interests of Europe, as we will be told, but it's the interests of an elite and the interests of those who are interested in either scarce commodities or land or water wars. There's so many possibilities in the next decades.
Well, I think the fact that a letter, simply a letter, takes us out of this.
Yeah.
And I think we should be taken out of it until there is a proper discussion, and we've had the proper discussion. And if the majority decide that this is the way we should go, well, then we must live with it. But nobody's been given the choice.
Yes, before the actual decision was made, excuse me a moment, I'll move around a bit. Before the actual decision was made, I met a couple of TDs in the Dáil and asked them what the hell is going on here. You know, the usual thing you do, I suppose, with a TD. Why aren't you doing something about this? And they explained to me that the government had tried to curtail the debate on our joining PESCO, the government joining PESCO. They tried to curtail the debate to an hour. the opposition spent 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks, not quite 3 weeks, more than 2 weeks anyway, bargaining with the government, and eventually got 3 hours for the debate. That's what this decision took. 3 hours debate in the Dáil. And the opposition had to fight for it. By the opposition, I don't mean Fianna Fáil, I mean the other groupings and political parties in the Dáil. And that's scant regard for democracy. It's scant regard for the people of this country. And it's absolutely disgraceful, really.
I agree with you there. And I have to say, Frank, thank you very much. And I know you've back pain today, and thank you very much for coming in and having a chat with us here. It's been enlightening. And I think that it's one of those subjects, particularly PESCO, that we really need to sit up and find out what's going on here. And we need to voice our opinions and say, hold on, hold the horses. We haven't had a discussion about this. Let's have the discussion. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks very much.
Please like and leave us a review on this if you could. That would be great. And enjoy the rain, everybody. Thank you very much.